Okay, now we're going to be coming into what Bhikkhu Bodhi calls it, the contemplation of feeling, which is observation of feeling. One of the things that so many people get mixed up with is they hear feeling as feelings, meaning emotional feelings, and this is not that. Feeling is pleasant, feeling is unpleasant, feeling is neutral. And that's all it is. Emotion happens with the clinging and habitual tendency. Okay, and how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating feeling as feeling? And here he has feelings as feelings. Here, when feeling a pleasant feeling, a monk understands, I feel a pleasant feeling. When feeling a painful feeling, he understands, I feel a painful feeling. When feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When feeling a pleasantly worldly feeling, he understands, I feel a pleasant worldly feeling. What is a pleasant worldly feeling?
Chai tea?
That's one.
Girls, right on top of this.
Pleasant feeling with one of the sense doors.
At one of the sense doors. That's right. When feeling an unworldly pleasant feeling, he understands, I feel an unworldly pleasant feeling. What is an unworldly pleasant feeling?
Joy, happiness.
Jhana.
Jhana. It's a feeling that you have in the jhanas. The strongest of which is equanimity. That's the strongest feeling that you can have. That's unworldly. When feeling a worldly painful feeling, he understands, I feel a worldly painful feeling. What is a worldly painful feeling?
Bad chai.
Bad chocolate.
Cleaning the outhouse.
That's pretty good.
Stubbing your toe?
Uh-huh.
It's an unpleasant feeling at one of the sense doors. That's a worldly, unpleasant feeling. He understands, I feel an unworldly, painful feeling. What is an unworldly, painful feeling?
Hindrance.
Okay.
Falling out of the jhana.
Falling off the jhana.
Hell.
One of the suttas said that grief, unworldly grief, is a longing for deliverance, or the longing for...
That's not it yet. It's meditation pain.
Oh.
What's the difference between a regular pain and a meditation pain?
Meditation pain.
Meditation pain goes away very quickly. A real pain stays with you. Scott can show you that.
Physical or mental.
When feeling a worldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands I feel a worldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. What is a worldly, neither painful or pleasant feeling?
Equanimity.
No.
Indifference.
Indifference.
Like tasteless rice.
Hmm?
Tasteless rice on your mouth.
It's being indifferent.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you don't have positive or negative judgment.
You always have a negative when it's tasteless.
Why? Okay. Well,
I'll give
maybe-
you some tasteless rice and you'll see.
Okay.
You can't have equanimity at one of the sense stores and call that a...
No, it's indifference at the sense stores. It's just not paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
When feeling an unworldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands I feel an unworldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. What is an unworldly, neither painful nor pleasant feeling? Equanimity. In this way, he abides contemplating feeling as feeling internally. He abides contemplating feeling as feeling externally. He abides contemplating feeling as feeling both internally and externally. He abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how a monk abides contemplating feeling as feeling. Now we get into an interesting one, and that's the contemplation of mind. And how does a monk abide contemplating mind as mind? Here a monk understands mind affected by lust as mind affected by lust. Mind unaffected by lust as mind unaffected by lust. He understands mind affected by hate as mind affected by hate, and mind unaffected by hate as mind unaffected by hate. He understands mind affected by delusion as mind affected by delusion, and mind unaffected by delusion as mind unaffected by delusion. He understands contracted mind as contracted mind. What is a contracted mind?
One. Sloth.
Huh?
Sloth.
Sloth and torpor.
Oh.
Okay. He understands a distracted mind as distracted mind. What is a distracted mind?
Restless.
Restlessness. He understands exalted mind as exalted mind. What is an exalted mind?
That one in the jhanas.
Rupa jhana.
A mind that sees the rupa jhanas, the four lower jhanas. He understands surpassed mind as surpassed mind and unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed mind. What is a surpassed mind?
Arupa jhana.
Formless. Rupa.
The arupa jhanas. The immaterial jhanas. Okay, so an unsurpassed mind is a mind that experiences the arupa jhanas, the immaterial jhanas. Now, when you're practicing loving kindness, the loving kindness will take you to the fourth jhana. As soon as you go beyond that, you lose all of the gross feelings of the body. You don't really feel the body very much unless there's contact made. And as you go deeper, then you will go into a feeling of expansion. In all directions at the same time. It's just expanding out without any limits, without any boundaries.
I recall calling them the last four jhanas,
Yes.
the non-substantial realm.
Well, these are the arupa jhanas. Yeah. So what happens is the feeling of loving kindness changes to a feeling of compassion. This is a natural process of going through the Brahma Viharas. Then you'll get to a place that's even deeper, and the feeling of of compassion changes again to a feeling of joy. In the suttas, they call mudita, which is the Pali name for this, they call it sympathetic joy, and I've never much liked that. I rather just call it joy. As you go deeper, you'll get to a place where, or when that sympathetic joy arises, then you'll start seeing the individual consciousnesses arise and pass away very quickly. And it's like watching a movie that the film is going too slow. And you're seeing a picture and then it flashes away, a picture and flashes away, a picture and flashes away. Now this happens very quickly. The reason that you're able to see the individual consciousnesses is not that your mind is speeding up. Mind goes at the same speed all the time. Your awareness becomes keener and sharper, so then you're able to see these.
Steady.
As you go deeper, then the feeling of loving kindness, or the feeling of joy, will again change to a feeling of strong equanimity, very strong balance of mind. And mind is not looking outside of itself anymore. And this is called the realm of nothingness, because mind is not looking outside, can't see anything outside, just looking at nothing. But there's something in nothing. And you still have mental states that arise in that. You still have balance, strong equanimity, you still have the enlightenment factors. There's all kinds of things that you get to see while you're in this particular state that I'm not going to go into too much. And the last of the immaterial realm is called neither perception nor non-perception. You experience this, but because it's so subtle, it's like you didn't, while you're in it, it's like you're not seeing anything at all. But when you come out and reflect on what you saw while you were in that state, there are still some things that are rising and passing away. So these are called the surpassed. They're surpassing all material things. You're getting into very, very strong mental awarenesses. Now, before I told you when you first start out, your mind flopping around like this. And when you get into the first jhana, then it's not flopping quite as much. In the second jhana, it's less. In the third jhana, it's less. When you get into the fourth jhana, now your mind's not moving very much at all, but it's vibrating. Okay? And as you go to the deeper jhanas, the vibration becomes finer and finer and finer until you can't tell whether mind is actually there or not. And that's neither perception nor non-perception. As you continue on with the 6 R's and the relaxing step, you'll get to a place where even that very fine vibration that's there stops. And that's called the cessation of perception and feeling. Right after that, what you will experience when the perception and feeling arise again is you will be able to experience very clearly the links of dependent origination and how they arise, and how if one link doesn't arise, the next link will not arise. Right after that, that is such deep, strong knowledge and vision. It's such a profound thing that your mind slips into an unconditioned state. And this is called Nibbana. This is the only way Nibbana occurs, through the direct knowledge of seeing how dependent origination works. And tomorrow you get to hear a lot about dependent origination. Okay? He understands a collected mind as a collected mind and an uncollected mind as an uncollected mind. A mind that's very collected is very still, and your mindfulness is very, very sharp. He understands liberated mind as liberated mind and unliberated mind as unliberated mind. What is a liberated mind?
Right, from the hindrance.
Natural free clinging.
Say it
Free
louder.
of clinging.
Free of clinging? Yes, definitely free of clinging, but that's not it yet.
Free.
Still.
The original mind, I mean the natural,
Not
the primal
well.
energy. Something like that. No?
It's the mind that's free from craving.
Right. Well, that's not simple.
Now, when you have a mind that's free from craving, this is what the Buddha called wisdom's eye. This is a mind that's clear, a mind that's bright, a mind that's very alert and pure. You're seeing everything as part of an impersonal process. You're just seeing it as things arising and passing away, arising and passing away. So the relaxed step in the 6 R's, you start to get more and more feel for how truly important it is. Because you start relaxing when you first start out, and your mind stops moving quite as much and less, and then the vibration becomes less and less. That occurs because you're letting go of the craving more and more on subtler and subtler levels. So, this is the contemplation of mind. This has always been a shock for people that are practicing straight vipassana when they find out that the Satipatthana Sutta is about the jhana practice. And experiencing the Satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, while you are in each one of the jhanas. You gain insights, and sometimes they're really, well, I I call them oh wows, the insights, because you'll have an insight in how something is, and you'll see it through the eyes of dependent origination, and you go, wow, that's really something.
It sure is. The foundations of mindfulness.
Yes.
You cannot go through them without jhanas or without absorption and attentiveness.
Be careful with the word absorption.
Yeah, I know it already.
Okay.
I regret it. I regretted having said it. I knew you would. So I made another sentence. You got it.
Ruth, I love you. I'm going to go to another sutta real quick. 149. And I'm going to read. Where is it? These two things, serenity and insight, occur in everyone yoked evenly together. So you have the serenity practice, not the absorption practice, and insight. So you have samatha and vipassana yoked together.
Yeah.
Now if you have a cart that's being pulled by two oxen, and one of the oxen is lazy, what happens is you start going in big circles.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to pull evenly together,
Yeah.
and that way you get to go in a straight line. Okay, now we get to the contemplation of mind objects. And the first part of the contemplation of mind objects is the hindrances. And how does a monk abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 5 hindrances? Here, there being a sensual desire in him, a monk understands there's sensual desire in me. Or there being no sensual desire in him, he understands there's no sensual desire in me. And he also understands how there comes to be the arising of unarisen sensual desire, and how there comes to be the abandoning of arisen sensual desire, and how there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned sensual desire. Understand?
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool.
It's almost Amidama, isn't it? This kind of intelligence.
Well, let me see if I can explain it a little bit. How there comes to be the abandoning of arisen sensual desire. How does that come to be?
6 hours.
By practicing the 6 R's.
That's right.
That's how you land it.
Practice it.
Yeah. By recognizing that your mind is distracted by sensual desire, letting that sensual desire be by itself, relaxing that tightness caused by that disturbance, coming back to your smiling and coming back to your object of meditation and staying with your object of meditation. Okay. How there comes to be the abandoning of arisen sensual desire. How there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned sensual desire. How does there come to be the
Everything.
let me do it again. how there comes to be the abandoning of arisen sensual desire, and how there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned sensual desire.
What is it before it comes?
Yeah, I'm feeling silly.
Well,
Silly.
how does there come to be the future non-arising?
Well, if they don't,
You stay on your object of meditation.
It doesn't
Yeah.
pull you off at all.
No.
Yeah.
When your mindfulness is strong, when you're in a jhana,
yeah,
your mindfulness is strong.
yeah,
When your mindfulness weakens for whatever reason, or gets distracted, all of a sudden you have a hindrance coming up.
yeah.
Now you have to work with that. When you stay with interest on your object of meditation, the hindrances will not arise.
Right.
Now, there being ill will, there being sloth and torpor, there being restlessness, there being doubt, he understands that it's there. And he understands when it's not there. He understands how there comes to be the arising of unarisen hindrance. How there comes to be the abandoning of arisen hindrance. And how there comes to be the future non-arising of abandoned hindrance. Now you understand. Easy, right? Yes.
Do you always have to know what kind of hindrance you have before you release it?
Doesn't matter. You know, one of the Western diseases is analyzing.
Right.
And it really doesn't matter whether you recognize this as a restlessness or doubt, whatever it happens to be. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you see it, you let it be,
Yes.
you relax, you smile, and you come back to your object of meditation and stay there.
That transference of that you just elucidated has an enormous effect on our psychology.
Oh yes.
I mean, they didn't need to do all the funny things they do. And they also didn't need to have the psychiatrist giving all these prescriptions.
Yes.
I mean, this is the most fantastic, for me this is a wonderment.
Yes
I
it
have
is.
tears in my eyes when I realize how simple it is.
Yes.
Not how easy, it's not easy, but it is simple. My God, what can be simple just looking at it, what you got there.
Yeah. It's true.
You just stay with it. So they don't tell you, some who get a little inkle now of Vipassana or so, will say, when they ask, well, I'm always angry and I don't know how to stop it and so on. Well, just stay, notice the anger, notice, sustain it, stay with the object.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will dissipate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're free of it.
Yes.
So it is, the transference to that is enormous from what you just said.
Yeah. And
But
the
without
thing that's
practice,
really
no.
funny is you can go to psychiatrists or psychologists and they will come up with brand new words to describe all of these things like depression.
Mm-hmm.
And depression and anger and sadness
11
and
different kinds they
frustration,
have found out now.
well, whatever we want to call them, they all work in exactly the same way.
Exactly.
A painful feeling arises. There's tension and tightness that comes in your mind and body. Craving. I like it, I don't like it, mine. With painful feeling, I don't like it. Then there's all of your thoughts, opinions, concepts, and ideas and story about why you don't like it. And your habitual tendency comes up right after that. And then you fall into the habit of trying to think your feeling away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the
They
more
find
you,
causes for it.
yeah, finding causes for it. Well, my mother bit my toe when I was 3 years old, that's why I don't like this. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah, right.
Really? But when you start recognizing that it doesn't matter whether it's physical pain or mental pain, it arises in the same way, always. So the first thing you do is you let go of your thinking about it. Let go of your concepts, let go of your opinions and the story. Now you relax. Now you bring up the wholesome. You smile. And come to your object of meditation. Now, your hindrance is not going to go away immediately. Let's face it, it's going to stick around for a while, depending on how strong your attachment to it is. But every time you let go of that craving, you are purifying your mind. And that pure mind is wisdom's eye. Why is it wisdom's eye? Because you're beginning to see this as a process that's part of dependent origination. See how everything starts to interconnect. And it's like we're weaving a very beautiful cloth. And all of this is interconnected. And it all works in the same way. And there's a lot of resistance with psychologists and psychiatrists in particular saying, no, that doesn't work like that. It can't work in the same way. It's got to be more complicated than that. But it's not. It's simple. Taking care of it is work. There's no getting around that. You have to roll up your sleeves and really do it. Every time you let go of a hindrance, you have immediate relief. Right after that, one of the jhanas will appear. And you go with that jhana for a little while, and then your mindfulness slips, and now you got another hindrance to work with.
Yeah.
But you're starting to understand this as a process. And you're starting to see it more and more clearly all of the time. I gave a talk in Oregon at a college, and it was a college dedicated to healing arts and that sort of thing. And David put it up on the website. And he did a little blurb about 10 minutes or something like that when I was talking about what depression is and how to get over it. And a little while later, somebody from a psychiatrist saw it and put it up on his website.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I was shocked. You don't need drugs to take care of sadness and depression. You don't need drugs for ADD. You have to be able to see what your mind is doing in the present moment and let go of a feeling is going to arise. That's the truth. Feelings will arise. Pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. Always after a feeling arises, craving arises. Tension and tightness. Always after that, your concepts, opinions, stories, and thoughts about. Your big identification with, yep, this feeling is mine and I have to control it with my thoughts. Habitual tendency. Then you have the birth of action. And then you have a lot of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. And that's the cause of this whole mass of suffering. So, when you let go of that craving, the feeling is going to arise, it's unpleasant. Mental or physical, it doesn't matter. It's an unpleasant feeling. If you can see that feeling arise and relax right then, none of these other links will arise. And you bring that pure mind back to your object of meditation. And that's how you develop having this amazing contentment, even though there's a lot of pain and anxiety and suffering that painful feeling can bring or not, depending on your perspective of this. Now the first link, or the first part, what is the Eightfold Path?
Oh,
The first, what is
factor.
it? The first factor. I
There you go.
couldn't pull the word out. See, it happens to me too. The first factor in the Eightfold Path, they call it right view, but I don't like that translation. For one thing, right is a word that lets you think either everything is right or it's wrong, everything is black and white, and it's not.
No, but one could explain that.
Well, I use the word harmonious, and that seems to do it.
Yeah. It's too soft
And I
for me.
called it harmonious perspective.
Harmony.
Harmony.
Ah, yeah.
Being in
Harmonious.
harmony with your perspective.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. Very soft.
Now, harmonious perspective is always seeing everything as an impersonal process, not taking it personally. When you don't take something personally, it means that there is no craving at that moment. Your mind is pure. You're seeing things the way it really is. Now, this is what I was talking about a few days ago when I was talking about if you have buttons to push, then you have attachments. You don't have a harmonious perspective. When you have things that, oh, they always say this and I always get mad at them for saying this or doing this. When you have an impersonal perspective, it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't matter what they do. Because you're seeing the true nature of it. It's only this feeling. And it isn't even mine. And it's easy to talk about this stuff, and sometimes it's real hard to act that way. But it takes the conscious decision to let go of the attachments and habitual tendencies. It takes practice to let go of habitual tendencies. What you're doing right now is starting to develop excuse me, some good habits. And good habits are always seeing things impersonally. Seeing things the way they really are. Letting go of a lot of your conceptual ideas and opinions and thoughts about the way things are supposed to be. and seeing it just as part of a process. Yes.
When I say I forgive myself for not understanding,
Yes.
is that what you're talking about?
You're starting to let go of that tight attachment of I am that. That's what forgiveness does. It starts changing your perspective from the personal perspective to the impersonal perspective. The impersonal perspective is, well, there's dislike there. What's that? Who cares? Never mind. It's very easy to let that be. But when you get involved with it, that means you're taking it personally. Every time you have repeat thoughts, guess who's attacked? Sigh.
Every time you repeat actions too.
That every time you have repeat actions, who's attached? Who likes or dislikes whatever it is that arose? I do. Who's causing themselves pain by being attached to that? I am. Is that other person causing my pain? No. Nobody can cause you pain. It depends on your perspective. And you have this idea, you say, well, somebody can cause me physical pain, but there can be sensation without it being painful. Now here's a story from the Jataka Tales to give you an example. The Bodhisattva was about 1.5 years old. His father was the king, his mother was the queen. And his mother really loved him. She was always playing with him and having fun with him and bouncing him around and doing all of those motherly things. And one day the queen walked into the room and said something, or the king walked into the room while the queen was playing with the Bodhisattva, and he said something to the queen. And the queen wasn't paying attention to him. And the king started to get jealous, and he started thinking, you know, she loves that little boy so much that when he gets to be a little bit older, they're going to try to take this kingdom away from me, and I'm not going to let that happen. So he called the executioner. And he grabs the Bodhisattva out of the queen's hands, he hands him to the executioner, and he says, I want you to cut his hands off. So, in the Bodhisattva's mind, he saw that he had a real opportunity to practice his equanimity and his loving kindness. So the executioner cut his hands off. The Bodhisattva didn't even cry. The Bodhisattva was focusing on loving kindness. Now he had 4 kinds of individuals. He had himself, someone he loved very much, his mother, somebody he was neutral to, the executioner, an enemy, his father. He was sending loving kindness to himself, his mother, the executioner, and the enemy, his father. And so he was focused on loving kindness rather than on the sensation of having his hands cut off. The king saw that the Bodhisattva wasn't crying, and it made him mad. So he said, okay, cut off his feet. So he cut off his feet. Still, the Bodhisattva wasn't crying. Mother was crying very profusely. The little hands, they put them in her lap, and the feet, they put them in her lap, and she was heartbroken. And the king was really angry now. And he said, oh, just cut off his head. So they did. Cut off his head. He was reborn in a heavenly realm. Why? Because he didn't entertain even one thought moment of dissatisfaction, of anger, of dislike of the sensations when they arose. What happened after that was the queen died of a broken heart, and she was reborn in the heavenly realm with the Bodhisattva. And the king had a heart attack too, and he was reborn in the hell realm. The executioner, because he was neutral to all of this, still went on living. So when you say, yeah, this other person can cause me pain, what is pain? Pain is a concept. Just like automobile is a concept. When we go out and look at an automobile, show me where it is. Where is the automobile? Is it the headlights? Is it the wheels? Is it the motor? Is it the steering wheel? Where is the automobile? The automobile is made up of a lot of different parts put together to make this concept. Pain is the same thing. It's an unpleasant feeling. It's a sensation. And it's made up of a lot of different parts of our attachments to it. Now, I've been talking to you about sitting and having a painful feeling arise, and what do you do with a painful feeling? First, you let go of the thoughts about it and relax. Then you notice that tight mental fist wrapped around that sensation, and you let that tight mental fist go. You allow the sensation to be there, even though it can be very intense. The truth is, when a painful sensation arises, it is there. That's the truth. You can't fight with the truth. You can't control the truth. You can't make the truth be anything other than it is. If you do, then you're fighting with the truth and you're not seeing it as it actually is. You need to allow the space for that truth to be. Now, I say pain, but it can be hindrance, any kind of distraction. This is why you can't use the loving kindness as a stick to beat the sensation away or beat the problem away. Loving kindness is actually loving acceptance of what arises in the present moment. It's the acceptance. Yes, it's there. Allow it to be there. Relax into it. Smile. Come back to your object of meditation. When they were drilling on my tooth, when the dentist was drilling on my tooth without any painkiller, there was sensation. And that sensation was very big and very intense. And it was okay for it to be there. had to be okay. Because the truth was, it was really there. You see? If that turned into pain, that means that my mind grabbed onto it and said, this is mine, I don't like it, I want it to stop, I can't stand this. It turns the sensation into an emergency. Now, if I would have allowed that, or if I would have allowed my mind to grab onto the pain and started pulling away and not liking it, he could never have given me a root canal. I'd have made him stop. No, it hurts too bad. Can't do it. Rather not have a tooth than do that. But when it turned it into a sensation and allowed the space for that sensation to be without resistance, without the want to control it, without the want to make it anything other than it was, by accepting it as it truly is, it went from an emergency to just a sensation. And then sometimes that sensation would be so strong it'd make me jump. And then all of my muscles would tighten up and my mind was going, whoa, that was really tough, I didn't like that one. Then I started recognizing and letting go of that thoughts, started relaxing my body, couldn't smile, had his hands in my mouth, didn't have enough room to smile. But I was smiling. And I was wishing him well. And he liked that feeling so well that he did it real slow. I'm sure he spent longer than was necessary just to make sure he did a good job. And I appreciate that, but it would have been better if he hurried up and got done. So we think in concepts. When we get to the point of thinking about and starting to analyze, now this is what the psychologists do.
Yes.
They analyze and overanalyze and overanalyze, forgetting that there's a process, or never recognizing that there's a real process that is happening. They get into their overanalyzing, taking you further and further away from the actual experience of what's happening right now when I'm depressed, or when I'm angry, or when I'm sad, when I'm frustrated, when I have anxiety. What is all of this stuff? The psychologists don't go deep enough to see that there is this process of a painful feeling arising, tension and tightness coming up, then all the thoughts and opinions and concepts and ideas, and the strong identification with them, and the habitual tendency. They're trying to solve a problem without going to the root of the problem. And sometimes it can work for a little while. But to actually get rid of this kind of distraction, this kind of pain, this kind of depression, it only works when you truly understand how the process works. And the only way you can really do that, you can listen to me say this all day, but until you actually start looking for yourself how this process works, you're not going to truly understand it. Now, this is the knowledge and vision that the Buddha was talking about, knowing and seeing. How do I know it? I know it's real because I saw it that way. And I didn't see it just once. I saw it a whole bunch of times. Is there any doubt that this is the way it works? No. Not when you see it that way. Okay? So, now we go through all of those. Then we get to the 5 aggregates.
I'm going to finish the April 10.
Not yet. Not sure I will tonight, but
Okay.
we'll see. A monk abides contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 5 aggregates affected by clinging. Aggregates affected by clinging, what does that mean? When aggregates are affected by clinging, it means they're affected by your thoughts, opinions, ideas, and craving.
Identification.
Identification. The aggregates can arise and not be affected by craving and clinging. This is why I kind of object to some of the translators when they say the clinging aggregates, because that is kind of misleading. It's taking you away from the actual experience of what an aggregate affected by clinging means. And it's never just affected by clinging. It's affected by craving and clinging. And there are some people that they'll say, well, craving and clinging is grasping, and try to make it into one thought or one idea, and they're 2 separate ones.
What is the difference between craving and clinging?
Craving is always the tension and tightness, and the I like it, I don't like it mind. Clinging is all of your opinions, concepts, ideas, and strong identification with that. Well, an interesting thing is an awful lot of teachers don't give you very good definitions of things.
Mhm.
For example, she asked a fairly big monk, what's mindfulness mean? And he said, it means to be mindful.
Well, he's right.
He's right.
But you can't define a word
Oh, I
by
know
using
that.
the word. You're just like... So I was driving the car and I went, beep, nope, that's wrong, give me another word. So we were
So
playing
what does
with that.
clinging mean? Most people say, well, clinging means holding on. It
Yeah.
means clinging.
Yeah, but there is with many words like this.
Yes.
There's
And-
always, I don't know where I read it, but it's always nice, any kind of concept we are using, to give it a background. See yourself, now for me, see yourself as the actor and acting. But it needs a stage to make the whole thing really real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you have a stage behind. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Any concept, I give a stage.
Right.
That's the thesaurus instead of
Yes.
the dictionary. The dictionary gives the meaning, but the thesaurus gives you the other words that are the
Oh.
same as the word, so you can find another word.
It also has something to do with the inner sensitivity we have and how much integrated this mindfulness or this thing is in us, so that it is also more a real volume it has. I use that word too, process.
Yeah.
And that helps very much.
Oh, yeah. What I try to do is give you definitions so that it's really clear what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, could you repeat the definition of sati again? Paying attention.
It's remembering to
to
observe
Mhm.
movements
So
of
only
mind's
relax.
attention from one thing to another.
And mind's attention, this confused me a little bit. Is the attention, mind's attention, are they two separate things? Are they the same thing?
Mind's attention is one thing.
One thing.
Mind can't move, right?
Mind just observes. But mind's attention will go from this observation to there.
Mhm.
Okay, you're on your object of meditation and you're distracted. Mind's attention moved to that distraction.
Mhm.
Our sharpening of mindfulness gets us to see this as it starts to happen and see it in different ways while it's happening.
It's a very, not a very good translation, is it? It comes from sati.
That
It's
is sati.
mindfulness.
Yeah.
That means empty mind, and this means full mind. We know a lot about full mind.
Yeah.
Fill it all the time with concepts.
Yeah.
So that's difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to find another word. I have 5 thesauruses in my cabin, and I'm continually
Yes.
looking up one word and going to another and going from that word to what it says here and going this, and I spend a lot of time trying to find
Yeah.
the precise word that's simple to understand and exact as it can be.
Uh-huh. And it's
Mindfulness is a hard one.
It is.
So I just use it with this definition,
Uh-huh.
and that seems to work pretty well.
With which definition?
Remembering to
Ah, yeah,
observe.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's an old one.
Yeah.
Old definition.
It's like, I thought put awareness, that word awareness in it, isn't that kind of
Take
being
awareness.
aware, awareness, isn't
Awareness.
that kind of the
I don't much like the word awareness because it has a lot of new age connotations that take people away from the actual meaning.
Huh. Yeah, I see that. Attention is more basic, isn't it? You get born and you have already attention there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
it's and very concentrated.
Yes.
Attention, that's basic. Everyone gets that when I take that example.
Yeah. Mark?
I think the same thing is the difficulty with equanimity, is that we try and find some kind of verb, a way of defining what that is when it is an experience that takes place.
Yeah.
And it's not one that's very common, and so we don't have a lot of languaging for that kind of description. But once you become familiar with what it is, you become it becomes very pleasant, and you can relate to it much easier, and it's still hard to describe.
Yeah. So we just stay with the word, and I use the word balance because that's what's really happening with your mind. Your mind is not wobbling anymore.
Right.
Your mind it's in perfect balance.
Very steady.
Even-minded. Even-minded.
Yeah. Okay, getting back to the 5 aggregates. And how does a monk abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 5 aggregates affected by clinging? Affected by craving and clinging. Here a monk understands such is material form, such its origin, such its disappearance. Now, what did I just say? What did I just tell you? I told you the first 3 links, or the first 3 parts of the Four Noble Truths. There is material form, such its origin, such its disappearance. And I could add in this, and when you practice the 6 R's, that's the 4th Noble Truth. That's the way. Okay? Such is feeling, such its origin, such its disappearance. Such is perception, such its origin, such its disappearance. Such are the formations, such their origin, such their disappearance. Such is consciousness, such its origin, such its disappearance. So this is all it says about the 5 aggregates. It's being able to recognize when they arise. They don't always arise in the same order. They can arise at different times. Perception is where memory is stored. But it's also where the start of concepts arise. Now, I say that because perception, the part of your mind that has perception is the part of your mind that names things. And that's the start of concepts.
Say that again.
The part of your mind that recognizes things is the part that names it. It gives it a name. You look at that, you say a pillow. You look at that, you say... And all of those are concepts.
Yeah.
This is where the concepts arises in your mind.
Blithering part. The part of your mind that blithers.
I'm not sure I know what that means.
Blither, like the blithering idiot, you know, blah, 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 blah. On and on.
Well, that's kind of a combination of aggregates, actually. not just the perception.
Well, you
Perception names.
You go, oh, this is a that, and that means this, and then, oh, I remember this about that, and on and on. No? More than one?
Yeah.
Well, memories,
It has memory attached to it, because when you look at that and your mind says that's a pillow,
Yes, memory.
why is that a pillow? Because it's a pillow from your memory.
And without some of that, we couldn't function.
That's
You
true.
wouldn't say that's a door, that's how I get in there, or whatever.
Right. We can't function in the material plane without having concepts.
That's right.
Doesn't work.
The name of the thing.
It's that's perception. It's the name of the thing. And memory.
There's memory in it too.
Yes.
Unless we forget what it was.
We wouldn't know how to describe it otherwise.
So when
The thing we put our
when
head
past
on.
life memories come out, so that's the perception and the memory together.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Kara, did I hear you said formation?
Yes.
Not mental formation.
Not mental formation.
So could you explain a little bit, please? A lot of time I heard they said mental formation. So in this way, you think it's more than mental?
The feeling, the perception, the formations, and the consciousness are all mental. Body is physical. This is the mentality and materiality. How they come together.
But it cannot function without the man as a human being, without all that mentality. There is no human being then.
That's true. You have to have a body, and you have
That's
to have
right, so
you
they
have to
are
have these
kind of-
aggregates. But the thing is, they don't have to be affected by craving and clinging.
Of course, yes.
And that's just a description of an arahat. He has 5 aggregates, but there is no affected by craving and clinging.
Good, that's right.
I love you, you know. You're wonderful. Okay, now we come to the 6 bases. Again, monks, a monk abides contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 6 internal and external bases. Here, a monk understands the I. He understands forms. He understands the fetter that arises dependent on both. What fetter arises dependent on both?
Craving.
Craving. And actually, you could say craving and craving and ignorance. Because it's a fetter. The ignorance is not seeing things through the eyes of the Four Noble Truths.
That's right.
So it could be craving and ignorance. He also understands how there comes to be the arising of the unarisen fetter. How does that come to be? Say that again?
Oh, contact arises. And feeling.
Not quite.
No.
The 6 R's.
No, no.
Now listen. How there comes to be the arising of the unarisen fetter.
How does it arise?
Oh, how does it arise?
Yeah,
Excuse me, that's how you get rid of it.
Right, right.
It's because of dependent origination.
Right.
All of those links. And how there comes to be the abandoning, that's what I was getting
Yes.
at. The abandoning of the arisen fetter.
There you go.
The 6 R's. And how there comes to be the future non-arising of the abandoned fetter.
Staying on the wholesome object.
That's
Staying
right.
with it.
And not identifying with it. He understands the ear, he understands sound, he understands the nose, he understands odor, he understands the tongue, he understands flavors. He understands the body, he understands tangibles, he understands mind, he understands mind objects, and he understands the fetter that arises dependent on both. Okay? He also understands how there comes to be the arising of the unarisen fetter, and how there comes to be the abandoning of the arisen fetter, and how there comes to be the future non-arising of the abandoned fetter. In this way he abides contemplating mind objects as mind objects, internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how a monk abides contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 6 internal and external bases. Now we get to a good one. The 7 enlightenment factors. And how does a monk abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the 7 enlightenment factors? Here there being the mindfulness enlightenment factor in him, he understands there is the mindfulness enlightenment factor in me. Or There being no mindfulness enlightenment factor in him, he understands there's no mindfulness enlightenment factor in me. He also understands how there comes to be the arising of the unarisen mindfulness enlightenment factor. How does there come to be the arising of the unarisen mindfulness factor?
Put mindfulness in front of you. It says so in the suttas. Sits down at a root of a tree and puts mindfulness in front of him.
You bring up your observation power by being interested in what you're observing.
Isn't that the second factor of enlightenment? Is it
That's the
investigation?
investigation.
Yeah,
But you bring it up by being interested.
yeah, that is joy, actually.
Well, they're all kind of interconnected.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Joy without
But-
interest is very weak.
Oh yeah, all of these without interest is very weak. And that's why I wanted to add some factors and not have 7 enlightenment factors, because all of the enlightenment factors, in order for them to come and stay, there has to be persistence
Curiosity.
and curiosity. How does it work?
Yeah.
So that the curiosity causes the interest to arise. Right? Okay. And how the arisen mindfulness factor comes to fulfillment by development. How does it come to fulfillment? By development. By using it over and over and over and over and over and over
That's
again.
right. Again and again.
Again and again. Takes practice.
Yeah. The image of making a new beginning,
Yeah.
is sometimes helpful.
Yeah. Now, when we get to the next enlightenment factor, it says the investigation of states, and I rather prefer the translation of investigation of your experience. That's a little change, but it's kind of a nice one. It makes it. So you're investigating how your experience arises. What happens first? What happens after that? What happens after that?
It's wider. It's a wider space for it.
Oh, yes.
You're giving by that.
Yeah. And it's more practical.
Oh, yeah.
So you're continually using the investigation. How did your mind's attention go from your object of meditation over to this distraction? How did that happen? When you have a hindrance and you let it go and you relax and smile and come back and you're with your object of meditation and you get pulled away again, as you become familiar with the process, you start to look and investigate more closely as to how that happened.
So you can watch the arising,
So
actually.
you can watch the arising,
Yes.
and
You
then
stay.
you can eventually let go of that hindrance completely. Then you have, oh wow, that's how it works. You see, the importance of the hindrances, almost everybody that I've read about the hindrances, they try to tell you to suppress it, to beat it away, it's your enemy, you gotta fight with it. And really, that's your teacher. That's your best teacher.
Right. Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
For my practice. Several times, but that what I just said, staying with it or following up, or realizing the arising, I think I have often experienced the motion, or a mental motion, where the forms itself
Yeah,
as a concept.
yeah,
It is before it becomes really the real concept,
yeah,
but it is now I understand more, mental formation. It forms itself out of whatever mentality, and then I know that is that.
yeah,
So
And
before
the-
it arises, I know it,
yes,
therefore.
yes. And what you're doing as you go deeper and keep letting
Yeah.
go of the craving is you're seeing this in finer and finer
Yeah.
and finer ways.
Mhm.
So you're seeing the little, at first you're seeing it this big before it comes up, and then you're seeing it this big, and then you're seeing it,
Yeah.
and it keeps getting smaller and smaller, but because of the repetition and your investigation, you start seeing it like looking through a different lens in the microscope. You're seeing it more and more plainly, more and more clearly, and you're teaching yourself this process.
Right. Is there any connection to what the Abhidhamma says? I don't know much about it, but I know that they say the arising of a concept or thought has 17 moments. It has first a little bit of a motion, and then it
I have some real problems with that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't. I'm sorry. But it can be so. But it is sometimes feeling like it has some relevancy to that. When I feel this kind of turning in as a mental ability, motion, and then there is this concept there. It arises out of mentality, not being recognized. So it is on a way, sometimes mentality can be almost physical. I mean, not sensing, but it's in a direct experience. I
To
think.
look at it from the angle of the Abhidhamma at this point is like going in to look at all the leaves on the forest floor.
Oh, really?
And he's trying to just give you the leaves in
Uh-huh.
your hand that you need.
See, there's the
And it's like an electronic microscope to do it that way.
the 17 parts of a thought moment.
Yes,
It
it's,
is.
Okay. You don't ever need to go that deeply. Because the dependent origination, you're able to see this process,
yeah.
but you don't need to divide it up into 7 jhana moments and 3
No.
these moments and 5 of those.
Yeah.
And-
No, it doesn't feel that way.
Right.
It feels that it arises out of the process somehow.
Well, and the seeing of the process is seeing the dependent origination in finer and finer detail.
Yeah.
We don't have to go that deeply to see 17 parts of one part of a
I
thought moment.
relate only to it now because of how does it happen, how can we prevent before it is arising. That got me to it. And I can
Well,
can
when you're-
prevent it because I sense it, or kind like this kind of curling
Right.
itself up out of nothing, and then I see it's a concept.
When you get into
That is
the realm...
pretty kind of mental.
Yeah, let me try this way.
Okay.
When you get into the realm of nothingness,
Uh-huh.
your mind becomes so subtle
Yeah.
and so amazingly clear
Mhm.
that you start to see how craving arises and how a little light will appear,
Mhm.
and you're looking for what happens before that light appears.
Uh-huh.
And when you see that, you will see craving at its very beginning. And when you're able to relax into that, then your mind is really, really still and calm and peaceful. And that's how you get into the next realm of the neither perception nor non-perception. But to divide that into 17 different parts, you don't really
I
need
never have done
that.
it, but I relate it because you
Yeah.
talked about before it is kind of gelling itself as a thought or
Yeah.
arising.
Yeah. But it's still the process of dependent origination that actually occurs then.
Yeah. And base is then craving.
Yeah. It's ignorance and craving. Ignorance and craving always.
Really, yeah.
Okay. So the investigation becomes finer and finer as you go along. Now, when you get sloth and torpor, and you start to investigate how it arises, like somebody told me today, they saw that there was tension and tightness in that. There was this contraction, this pasty kind of feeling. That's a great insight.
Yeah.
It's truly wonderful to be able to see that closely. And when you take the time to investigate like that, it naturally pulls up your energy. And when you have your energy pulled up, guess what goes away? Sloth and torpor. A lot of people misunderstand torpor. Torpor is that dull mind. It's not the sharp, alert mind, it's the dull mind. It's like looking through fog.
Inertia, isn't it?
Yeah,
Could it be?
inertia,
Heavy.
kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's in it.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah. Now, when you want to overcome the sloth and torpor, you need to use your mindfulness, you need to use your investigation, and that leads to your picking up of your energy. That's the first 3 links of the enlightenment factors. When you have restlessness, then you go to the last 3 links of the enlightenment factors, and that is tranquility and collectedness and equanimity. And the way to attain that is the balancing factor of the enlightenment factors. The balancing factor is joy. Effort is part of energy. Joy is the mind that allows you to be alert, bright, and very, very clear. Now, the enlightenment factor of joy is the all-pervading joy. It's different than the other kinds of joy that I've described before because it doesn't have that excitement in it. It's like a real strong satisfaction. Yeah, that's it. And your mind is bright and alert.
Gratification is
A little bit of gratification in that, yeah. So the enlightenment factors: mindfulness, investigation of experience, energy, joy, tranquility, collectedness, equanimity. When you have those in balance, you will be enlightened. Easy, right? Sure. Piece of cake. You have to be in perfect balance. And you get to that perfect balance by development, by using the factors and knowing what they are while they're there, and how to use them. Now, I've been telling people they've been coming for the interviews and they say, my mind is really restless. And I don't feel like sitting down and going through this. Well, the only way you're overcoming the restlessness is by not moving a muscle. Don't move your body at all. And when you're radiating loving kindness to your friend, the wish you make is, may you be tranquil and calm. And feel that feeling, put that feeling in your heart, surround your friend with that feeling, and radiate that feeling to your friend. That
It's
will
not
help.
moving. Right, it's not moving.
Not moving. Not moving at all. And that'll stop that scattered mind, that distracted mind, and you'll become very calm and peaceful, and that helps to get rid of that mind that's always distracted, going outside, thinking this, thinking that. Okay?
I'm sorry. I mentioned that collectiveness was
Collected?
collected.
Yes.
Can you?
Collected mind is a mind that's very composed,
Okay.
a mind that's still, not jumping around anywhere. Now, they use the word here, in this translation, concentration. But I don't use the word concentration very often, because the word concentration in this country is misunderstood. It means extreme one-pointedness, and that's not it. It's a mind that's composed, very still, very quiet, but still alert. A one-pointed mind is just stuck on one thing. So the concentration isn't that. The composed mind is a kind of concentrated mind. But because of that word concentration, I stay away from it.
You can't use the word alert also, kind of extra.
Well, it's very alert. It's because of all the other factors that are there too.
Okay.
Can you use the unified?
Unified? Yeah, but you still have to give it, you still have to give it some other definition outside of that. It's not a one-word definition, but composed is,
Really good.
collected is, it's kind of more all-encompassing, and it gets closer to the feel of it, because your mind is composed, your mind is alert, your mind is still.
Focused.
Still calm.
No.
That's
Balanced.
Well, that's equanimity.
Got it.
Huh?
Words get in the way, huh?
Yeah, they do. I'm the only monk I know that has so many thesauruses and spends time with them.
He tries to convince other monks that they're Dhamma books, and they really are Dhamma books, because you can't work with the Dhamma unless you have the dictionaries and the sources there all the time, because of this kind of thing.
What's the Pali word?
Samadhi.
Oh, samadhi.
But that's a word that was made up by the Buddha. There were other words for absorption and deep concentration. But he chose not to use those words. He made up this word to describe collective. And after he died, when the Brahmins started to take on the robes without knowing what the Buddha's teachings were, they started changing definitions to match the Hindu way of looking at things, or Brahmin way of looking at things.
So that's why it's a Sanskrit word as well.
Yes,
So the origin was Pali first and then Sanskrit.
yes.
Is
Yeah.
it a composite word, like sama?
And D.
The Sama is tranquil. D is wisdom. And there are other translators that will argue with me up one side and down the other on that one, but that's really close to it. It's like the word dukkha. Everybody knows what dukkha is, right? Du is a negative. It's no. And ka comes from the base word kanti, which is patience. So dukkha means no patience.
That's wonderful. This is true.
And I've had fights with other translators about that word. But that's how it goes. I mean, everybody's trying to do the best they can with what they know. And this is the way that I choose
But
to
that is a
translate it.
wonderful word. Because to see it as lack of patience. Look at life, what all the unwholesomeness is done. Because we don't have time.
We don't have the patience.
We don't have patience. On
There's
the
another
level
trans-
of speech and on the level of action.
Okay, now we go to a very interesting aspect of the four foundations of mindfulness, and that is the Four Noble Truths. And how does a monk abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects in terms of the Four Noble Truths? Here a monk understands as it actually is, this is suffering. He understands as it actually is, this is the origin of suffering. Each one of the links of dependent origination has the Four Noble Truths in it. We have, let's say, death. That's the suffering part. You have an origin of death. What's the origin of death? Birth. What's the cessation of death? What's the way to the cessation of death?
This is 6
It's harder. No burden.
When you let go of birth, then death will not arise. That's the cessation. And the way is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is basically the 6 R's, mindfulness and harmonious perspective. Okay, we're coming to the conclusion now. Monks, if anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 years, one of 2 fruits can be expected for him. Either final knowledge here and now, in other words, he becomes an arahat, or if there is a trace of clinging left, non-return. That means you would be at the 3rd stage of enlightenment. And that's an anagami. Let alone 7 years, monk, if anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 year, one of 2 fruits can be expected for him, either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of clinging left, non-return. Let alone 1 year, monks. if anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 months. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, half a month. Half a month, guys. One of 2 fruits can be expected for him, either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of clinging left, none return. Let alone half a month. If anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 days. This is day 4. So you got 3 days, guys. Come on, you can do it.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, actually.
One of 2 fruits can be expected. Either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of clinging left, none return. So it was with reference to this that it was said, monks, this is a direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. We all know what has to be done. We still got a few days. Okay, let's share some merit so you can go back to work. May suffering ones be suffering free.
May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May all beings inhabit space and earth